Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw! You're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Whoa! Knock my socks off! My goodness!
Joe Giammatteo.
What happened? Did someone jam a camera into Jose's chest?
62 years old. I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on December 2nd, 1996. This Raw was recorded at the New Haven Coliseum in New Haven, Connecticut, and features Vince McMahon, Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then, let's get into it. I love the fact that we are still not fucking around, and we go straight into our first match of the night. Flash Funk defeats the Goon by pinfall in 5 minutes and 55 seconds. Ryan, the Goon, that's a familiar name, right?
Yes, the Goon was the jobber of the week back on our July 22nd, 1996 episode of Wrasslin Raw.
Thank you for that. That's something that we should keep in mind going through this match. But as we tuck that back into the backs of our minds, we need to focus on the visual display that's in front of us. What a great way to kick off the show this is. Flash Funk got pyro. The Funkettes are there with him. They are gorgeous. So gorgeous, in fact, that children were groping them.
Oh, that was bad.
Vince McMahon said, "Shake that thing!
Ugh.
Shake the booty!" And it just got weird all around. I'm really glad he was enjoying himself, though. It kind of takes on a different light now in 2022, but he was really enjoying things.
His dancing.
Yeah.
It was like a cross between like a mummy and Elaine from Seinfeld.
Well, this whole Flash Funk choreographed routine was honestly a little impressive. Like, how on earth did they think it was worth putting that much energy into creating an entrance? It's like a full dance routine. Just, again, impressive, especially considering this is WWF. They weren't doing too bad with it. I was still amazed that the Goon hasn't been breaking his ankles in those mock hockey skate boots. Terrible. There's at least 3 inches of foam between his heel and the floor. Flash Funk hit the Goon with a crazy corkscrew roll-up pin thing from the corner. That looked great and was executed perfectly. We got a split screen to let us know that Shawn Michaels is in the WWF studios to apologize for something. Not sure what. Flash Funk's arm drag takedowns looked fantastic, and so did his drop kick and his clothesline to the Goon outside from the second rope. Vince was really enjoying himself in this, and so was I, honestly. Flash Funk hit what looked like a shooting star press on the Goon from the top rope to the outside. And Vince really loved that second check-in with Shawn, guffawing when Shawn gave a fake smile and wave. And that's when we got the news that Tiny Tim, the "I love my ukulele" Tiny Tim from back in 1993 passed away. Jerry Lawler was making light of that pretty heavily.
Relentless.
As is appropriate. Flash Funk hit a 360 leg drop as his finisher. We got an up-close and personal camera view of it, and I have to admit it looked good for what it was. And once again, guys, we have a pretty entertaining show opener here. Is it Steve Austin and Mankind? No. Is it Bret and Owen Hart? No.
Am I changing the channel? Yes.
Oh. But it's Flash Funk getting flashy and funky with a former jobber of the week, no less. I thought it was pretty entertaining. Ryan, what did you think of it?
Well, from the very beginning, I know, Bartlett, you warned us at the end of last week, but I still totally forgot that we were going to get the Goon, taken totally by surprise. But when I realized that Flash Funk was going to be coming down here making his, I guess, singles debut, we did see him in the ring briefly during, Survivor Series, right?
Yeah.
I thought Funk looked great. I mean, the Goon, that's something else. But Flash Funk, everything he was doing looked pretty smooth, I thought. And some high-flying stuff that we've seen attempts at, like these backflips off the turnbuckle onto the outside and shit like that. But they haven't been executed quite as well as Flash Funk has been doing it. And I think it's a shame that we're going to have him hobbled with this Flash Funk gimmick and this ridiculous cartoon costume, because I think he is the high flyer that Marc Mero wishes he was. He can't hit the moves smoothly like Funk hits them. And speaking of Mark, they confirm our worst fears from last week, telling us that Marc Mero, Jake the Snake, will be teaming up to take on Hunter and Billy. You told us also that was going to happen, but still wasn't ready for it again. When we go to the split screen with Shawn Michaels and he waves, Vince McMahon giggles like a little girl when he waves. It was unbelievable. And agreeing with you on King here, way to just not put down your character and just lean into it. Making fun of Tiny Tim's passing just completely brutal about it. At one point, Flash Funk's laying face down motionless and he says, "Oh, look, it looks like Tiny Tim." Just unbelievable. And then I thought it was pretty cool when Funk did his little hand motion to show he was going for the finisher. You could see all the ECW fans in the arena, like the guy in the Cactus Jack shirt. They were on their feet cheering already. They knew that his finisher was coming, and it did. It looked pretty smooth. We had a bunch of distractions and unfortunately had the Goon here, but I didn't think Flash Funk looked bad. I thought he kind of displayed himself pretty well here.
Yeah, Flash Funk he's exciting to watch right now. But, the dancing and stuff, he's there for just pure entertainment. We're never going to take him seriously.
Yeah.
Which, Too Cold Scorpio is a guy that you could take pretty seriously, but they put him in this gimmick and he's going to do okay with it. He comes out with the Funkettes, and they're giving me Fly Girls vibes when they're coming out there. And yeah, those fans, they need to keep their hands to themselves because, man, they were getting pretty grabby, and that's pretty hard to watch. Like, that doesn't happen nowadays. So yeah, that's pretty strange. It was like kind of ruining their dance routine. Like they were trying to get away from these fans and weren't able to, fully commit to their dance moves. This match was basically designed for Flash Funk to get all of his shit in, and he did. The Goon has a haircut now that makes him look even more cartoony than he looked the last time we saw him. It looks like his hair got a little longer. It's almost like a bowl cut, but it's just like it's like a fucking
White Christmas
mushroom. It's like a mushroom head. He also might have a concussion after taking that Flash Funk moonsault on the outside. Funk's knee hit him right in the fucking head. That looked pretty painful. But yeah, all the moves by Flash Funk, they're gonna be good. We're gonna enjoy them every time we see them, but can you guys imagine trying to book Flash Funk into a serious angle with anyone? That would be pretty difficult to do.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The gimmick by itself it hobbles him. I can't imagine a belt on anybody named Flash Funk. The one thing that I would say, though, is if you're going to book him like they're doing here as a show opener. I have to ask you, Joey, were you joking whenever you said that you were going to change the channel on this?
I'm
watching it.
No, I was serious. I would change the channel, and I'd probably see an image of Sting up in the rafters, and I'm keeping it on TNT.
Yeah, which, very, very valid. But I feel like they're doing a good job of hitting us with something high energy and attention grabbing here at the start. And I'm not sure I would have.
It's against the Goon.
I guess the thing is like, it's great that Flash Funk, the wrestler, is here, but why with this gimmick? Like we were just talking about, why completely kill any chance he has of being taken seriously as a wrestler, especially when he could do this type of stuff in the ring, and you make him a cartoon joke.
They could have taken a guy like that and created their own, not cruiserweight, but that type of vibe. Give
him the push you were giving Marc Mero.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, are you going to stay on USA and watch Flash Funk versus the Goon? Or are you going to switch over to Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis or someone like that? I mean,
yeah,
they could have done something like that with Scorpio, but no, they gave him this cheesy gimmick.
I'm certainly not debating any of that. I'm just saying that whenever you have main events like Jake the Snake Roberts and Marc Mero in a tag team, you need to grab people's attention right off the bat. Flash and Funk coming together to be flashy and funky, to engage people and maintain that attention. Kind of like anime or something where it's nothing but a bunch of screaming people and flashing lights. It draws people in like moths to a flame, and it keeps some people sucked in. Some people like myself, as a matter of fact. I was drawn right into this. It was so flashy and funky.
Once you end up getting a seizure from the flashing lights, you can't take your eyes off.
Oh my, flashy, funky. Well, let's move on to last Wednesday. Let's move forward to last Wednesday in London, England. Steve Austin was in the ring with Psycho Sid, but earlier during that Flash Funk match, we had seen an image of Bret Hart in the ring with Sid and Austin, I think, attacking Bret. Austin cut a very fast backstage promo for us here, suggesting that it was Austin and Sid that got interrupted, but there was no real further clarification of that. This was very brief, so I just wanted to quickly ask before we move on. Ryan, did you have a clearer view of what exactly was going on here than I did?
Not at this point. I mean, it gets cleared up a little bit later, but yeah, I was a little confused as well.
Yeah, we'll find out more, but it seems like later we're going to find out, okay, this was kind of like, I guess, the live angle that they're doing this week.
Yeah, this was just a very disjointed way of, like, presenting it to us, I guess. Well, I wish I could say that the good times would continue, but the show continues with our next match. Fake Diesel defeats Phineas Godwin with Hillbilly Jim by pinfall in 3 minutes and 43 seconds, and that is one of the most unfortunate sentences I've ever uttered. Another unfortunate sentence is Jim Ross is on commentary for Fake Diesel's match, and he is bitching and red-assed. God damn it. Now that's where I changed the channel.
Just when we thought it was over.
Complaining about his microphone again.
Yep. Of all the fucking things.
He hit all of the highlights here.
Yeah. He made a comment about maneuvers, bitched about Vince McMahon.
Reminded us that Fake Diesel and Fake Razor exist and are a thing.
Yeah. We broke to commercial for the Royal Rumble coming up in January of 97. It was very 90s, and came back to split-screen footage of Jerry Lawler destroying Tiny Tim's ukulele all over again. It was good to see. We got the fantastic news that Fake Razor and Fake Diesel will be taking on Owen Hart and the British Bulldog for the Tag Team Championships at the pay-per-view. Looking forward to that one. Right about when Fake Razor was making his way down to the ring, I was making my way to the litter box. But I did decide to just stick around for an extra second. That ended up being enough to see the Fake Diesel put on the very shaky-looking fake jackknife powerbomb onto Phineas to get the pin and the 3 count. Joe, please, can you please tell me, how do you think we ought to go about getting that 3 minutes and 43 seconds of our lives back?
Well, I have no notes at all about this match because the whole time I'm just thinking, I can't believe they're still doing this. They're still doing these Fake Diesel, Fake Razor gimmicks. What the fuck? Why? I don't get it. I don't know. The litter box was very clean after this 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Just really, really bad.
Yeah, it's very, very bad. It's the only way to sum it up. I mean, at least Glenn Jacobs here as Fake Diesel is a superior wrestler than Fake Razor. But that's it. I mean, that's about the only thing that I could say, because why is this still here? Like you said, Joe, it needs to be gone immediately. The fact that at the beginning of this match, they decided to resurrect the red-ass JR. I mean, just right from the beginning was, oh, way to just fucking ruin all of this. And the way they end these matches, have we had a fake Razor or fake Diesel match that did not end the exact same way with the other fake guy coming out and interrupting somehow that causes the win?
Every time.
Every single time. Just fucking stop it.
Yeah, it's strange, you know. It's one of those moments where you stop and take a look at things and you have to say to yourself, you know, it's not that we were doing good, but we were doing better without this, with JR and both of the fake guys. Like, I just would prefer to not know that they're there.
Well, and to be fair to the fake guys, too, I think we've said it before, they both don't look like great wrestlers in these gimmicks, but they're trying to be a specific wrestler that already existed. So it's like, I mean, you got to give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess. Like, yes, they're bad, but they're not being themselves or being some other, you know, some new gimmick. They're forced to try to be a copycat of people that already existed.
Yeah. Unfortunate situation all around. Much like the situation with Jose Lothario. Next up was Shawn Michaels backstage. We finally got to talk to him. The tension was palpable going into that. Shawn was very fake here in his apology for being defensive back whenever he was sitting at the Zaggett's couch with Jose Lothario last week. And Vince tees up all of the details for Shawn again, mentioning people cheering Sid, but leaving out the part about fans booing Shawn. And we even got Shawn calling himself a man's man here. And that's when I knew that Vince had probably handwritten the cue cards that were in front of Shawn for this entire segment. Shawn makes mention of dragging skeletons out of the closet in order to be a role model, with no mention of dragging Sonny out of the closet too. This ended up falling pretty flat overall with me, and it made me want to ask you both, Joe first. This is in addition to, to your overall thoughts on this interview, but what did this interview do for your view of Shawn Michaels? Like, did it improve it, bring it down? Is it still the same? How did this move the dial for you on Shawn Michaels?
The babyface Shawn Michaels, the forced babyface Shawn Michaels, I should say, is on life support right now.
Much like Jose Lothario.
Yeah. And Vince McMahon is trying to save it, but there's too many people that are sick to death of it, like me and the Madison Square Garden crowd.
Yeah, I mean, you said it there. It's just not working. And Vince McMahon, even from the beginning, Shawn Michaels apologizes for being defensive, and Vince immediately comes to Michaels' defense saying, well, if anyone deserves to be defensive, it's you. It's just like, give it up, Vince. And Vince refuses to acknowledge the boos, but Michaels does. He does mention about the boos in the crowd. And again, like I've mentioned for a couple weeks now, they clearly pissed him off. He goes off saying how he's not politically correct, and if mums and dads out there don't want him as a role model, so be it. So is he a babyface? I mean, it certainly doesn't seem like it anymore. At least Shawn Michaels doesn't want to be.
Yeah, it's really strange watching this. It's like a slow motion car wreck with Shawn, and I'm trying to keep the future out of my mind with all of this, the whole losing the smile and all of that. But between hearing all of the shit that you hear on the professional wrestling podcasts from the people that were there working with him at the time, it's a pretty clear picture that the overall just big picture pressure got to Shawn, and he wasn't able to handle it. And it feels like instances like this, they were like Joe, like you said, they were forcing it. They're trying to make something work that isn't working. They're trying to cram that square peg into the round hole. And it's like we can see Shawn Michaels kind of breaking like crack by crack in front of us. This whole thing just kind of gave me the willies a little bit because it was that fake, and I don't remember this being like this whenever I was a kid. I don't think I had the awareness to really look for it, so it's not surprising, but man, this is obvious to me at least that this is not really a healthy situation. Well, Another unhealthy situation. Our next match. Justin Bradshaw with Uncle Zebekiah defeats Jesse James by pinfall in 5 minutes and 58 seconds. Jesse James was working the crowd pretty well coming out here, started singing the Alone With My Baby Tonight song, and we broke the commercial, came back to Justin Bradshaw coming down to some decent heavy metal music. I've said it before, I'll say it again, this is a great entrance for a big bruiser. He walks down to the ring like he's ready to kick some ass, he's got a nice chugging heavy metal riff behind him. If we could lose some of the more aggressive cowboy gimmick in Uncle Zebekiah, he'd look pretty good doing this. Jesse James's drop kicks looked pretty good, and the big boot from Bradshaw looked great, so did Jesse James selling it. We got the news that next week, we'll have an Undertaker versus Mankind no-holds-barred match on Raw. That was extremely surprising. And in the match, overall, I was pretty impressed with Jesse James, still being relatively green, but not really looking it. That's not to say that this was a match of the year candidate in the least bit, but all things considered, Bradshaw wasn't looking too bad either. One thing I did not care for was Zebekiah slamming that useless fucking branding iron on the ring stairs intermittently. That was pretty annoying. And I continued to get annoyed also with Jesse James's constant showboating. It was just a little too much for me, a little too cocky from Double J. And by the time we got to the interference from Uncle Zebekiah, that ended up in a pin and the victory for Bradshaw, I was already ready for this to be over. I do have to note that Bradshaw's clothesline to cap things off was quite a devastating maneuver. Any enthusiasm for that I might have had was flushed down the shitter as soon as Zebekiah got in the ring to brand Jesse James with the ink stamper branding iron. Joe, I thought this was a step down from Flash Funk, a step up from Fake Diesel, but still not getting us anywhere where we want to be. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it's still a stinker.
Yeah.
One thing that was surprising here is I did not expect Bradshaw to win this match.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too.
Yeah, Double J, because they've been like doing vignettes with him and shit like that leading up to this. He's had like one match, I think, on Raw since we've seen him as the new Double J. So yeah, a little surprising, I guess, but I guess it's maybe going to be the start of a new feud between these two. And I mean, they're still both really early in their career and they both, they're both going to do great things later. But here it's just, I don't know, you slap these gimmicks on these guys and it's just not that exciting. And Jesse James, with all the gyrating and strutting that he's doing, he kind of has a feel of like a territory guy, like a wrestler you'd see at like a fairgrounds somewhere or something. I don't know. It's just too, like you said, Bartlett, it's a little too much. It's a little too goofy.
Yeah, and we're all three in agreement here. This was nothing special. At the beginning, though, the King tells us that Beavis and Butthead Do America is in theaters now. That was a great tidbit, especially, the timing. They just came back 25 years later. They just had a new movie and the show's back, so the timing couldn't have been better there. The wrestling looked okay at the beginning. Jesse James showing off some of his moves when Bradshaw took over, being the more slower, methodical power wrestler. And they did okay, but it got a little bit boring. They started getting in some headlocks. Jesse James overselling, but also very familiar. But having Zebekiah get involved here with everything, and it was just a very flat match. I mean, it wasn't terrible. This wasn't a complete stinker. But again, another pretty poor match. Not a very good record tonight that they have going on. And then to top it off, they come in and brand his arm with the that branding iron. And I was tempted to give Double J the Jobber of the Week after seeing him get branded, but I decided against it. I will hopefully not have to give it to him at a later date.
We're going to have to commission Diego to put together a whole bunch of images of us with former Jobbers of the Week with some kind of new jobber symbol like branded on them. We can post it as a gallery on the website. The only thing that would be more exciting than that would be the Karate Fighters tournament bracket.
What's left of it.
What's left of it. This was, in the end, pretty disappointing. The downward trend continues. This bracket was supposed to be Psycho Sid and Mr. Perfect. Obviously, Mr. Perfect isn't going to be there, and they made some kind of hackneyed excuse for Psycho Sid to not be in this because he's the champion or something like that. I don't know. It really didn't add up. Anyway, bottom line is we can't have Psycho Sid versus Mr. Perfect, so instead it's going to be Jerry Lawler and the Toadster. I popped my ass off when Petting Zoo lost. Get him the fuck out of here. Next week it will be the final bracket, Jerry Lawler versus Sable, and I feel like we've missed an entire quarterfinal series in that. They must have had it on like Superstars or something. We leave that to get a replay of Stone Cold Steve Austin's interference in the Bret versus Owen match last week. Vince frantically calling this replay. We had a really nice view of Austin laying that chair into the Bulldog. That was a great replay of the hit. And then we got some clarification on that Austin promo earlier that we were talking about. Austin brought in a foreign object against Sid whenever they were in London on Wednesday. The Bulldog came in to get Austin, and then Sid went after the Bulldog. The Hitman came out to save the Bulldog, and then Sid attacked the Hitman. I'm pretty sure I got that right. Please correct me if I didn't. It got a little convoluted.
You left out one step. Before Sid attacked Bret Hart, Stone Cold attacked Bret Hart from behind.
That's right.
Set up the Sid chokeslam. So
that's right. This was like a 7-step process. And thank you for correcting me on that because it got a little
horrible looking chokeslam, by the way.
But what wasn't horrible, in my opinion at least, was after that, we got pretty good backstage promos from Owen Hart. We got a great one from, good for the Bulldog, but then another good one for Bret Hart. These looked very raw and like not produced at all, like from a static camera or something in the backstage. It gave them like a really gritty feeling. It amped up the realism of it all. It kind of made me feel like I was watching an ECW promo.
That's what I was just going to say. It gave you that thought of the poor video quality of an ECW show.
Especially when it came to Sid. Sid's promo was the final one of all in this, and Sid's promo was fucking great. I wouldn't say it's his best necessarily.
No, that goes to the Lion.
Yeah, Ewatamela, the king of the jungle. But still, this was pretty good. Well, see, for a champion, because the champion can't give promos about Ewatamela, but this, though, was very fitting for a champion. Unfortunately, it got interrupted by Sable's entrance music. But before we get to that, Joe, what did you think about this week's Karate Fighters bracket, the more fully explained version of what happened over in England on Wednesday, and then the promos that we got out of it?
Well, this is easily the most disappointing Karate Fighters matchup, right? Because we got Todd Pettingzoo.
The Toddster.
Inserting himself into a matchup. So absolutely horrible. I hated it. I kind of wish they would have gone with Doc Hendricks instead of Todd Pettingzoo to do these Karate Fighters.
Anyone.
Yeah, pretty much anyone.
Kevin Kelly.
Yeah. I would have rooted for Kevin Kelly. Fuck yeah.
He could have screamed, oh my God. When he got...
The highlights from London were interesting, and going to the promos, I like what they're doing with Stone Cold Steve Austin here. He's like an annoying fly that won't go away. He's inserted himself into everyone's. Everybody hates him right now. Baby faces, heels, not knowing what's going to happen later with the Hart Foundation. This is good stuff because he's in the Bulldog's head, and that's bothering Owen. They're both heels. Yeah. And he's, of course, still feuding with Bret Hart, inserting himself into the whole Bret and Sid situation that's going to be happening here in a couple of weeks. So, yeah, it's good stuff. I'm interested to see where they're going to go with it.
So to start off with the Karate Fighters tournament, this was definitely the most disappointing Karate Fighters segment that we've seen. When we learn it's just going to be the King and Petting Zoo, and what the hell was with the story they gave with Mr. Perfect? They said because he got humiliated after Hunter bested him, but didn't we learn that it was the perfect hoax and they were together all along?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, he was going off the WCW and they had to replace him, but could have came up with a better answer than to expect us to not remember what we saw.
Well, this is what happens when they don't just pretend like it never happened.
Thankfully, Petting Zoo loses. The King wins here, but I do have to ask, am I remembering correctly, didn't the King lose in the first round of this tournament? And I think he cheated and got eliminated kind of like Sonny.
Yeah, I don't remember. Do you remember who it was against?
I don't, but I thought he put his thumb on the guy's foot or something. Yeah. They went back and showed I'm almost 100% he was already in the first round.
Yeah.
So.
We're going to have to devote an entire episode to analyzing the Karate Fighters tournament.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be on the Patreon.
Could be more exciting than this episode. When we go to London, England, and they show us the events over there, I think if we would have watched it in real time, it wouldn't have been as bad. I'm not saying that the content and what was happening was bad, but it was just convoluted. Like you pointed out going over it, Bartlett, just one thing after another. This person attacks this person, and then this person attacks that person. But the promos were great. I was really happy to see everyone got to cut their own England promo, and I thought they all did a good job. And to me, one of the best parts was the Owen Hart Bulldog part backstage where, he's kind of trying to pump up the Bulldog to not worry about Bret and Stone Cold. They got the tag belts to worry about. I thought it was all good promos that everyone cut there, including Sid's, another good one.
Yeah, I mentioned that it had the ECW feel to it, and for a split second, it really took me back to that. It was, like you said, Ryan, that gritty, cheap camera quality, like it was filmed in a basement in Queens somewhere. Good stuff, pal. Oh, man, I really had wished that we could somehow, maybe like a sudden storm would come up and we wouldn't have to talk about it or something. Something would end the podcast recording, but...
Your highlight of the night.
Yeah. Yep. That's our final match. Jake the Snake Roberts and Marc Mero with Sable defeat Billy Gunn and Hunterhurst Helmsley by pinfall in 11 minutes and 19 seconds. Jake Roberts was looking like absolute shit before the action even started.
So let's keep him in there the entire time.
Oh my God. I'm glad I'm not the only one that noticed it. Fucking hell. Billy Gunn and Hunterhurst Helmsley both looked odd coming down, halfway in their original gimmicks, but also halfway out of them. Jerry Lawler gave us the news that Billy has been telling everyone that he and Bart aren't even brothers. I thought that was kind of funny considering they'll both go by Billy and Bart Gunn for the rest of their careers. A few minutes in, and I couldn't help but highlight the fact that Jake Roberts just really, really fucking looked terrible in this. How could you not highlight it? He was in there constantly. We got a split screen from Jesse James calling out Bradshaw and requesting a 2-on-1 against Bradshaw and Uncle Zebekiah. That was kind of surprising, kind of interesting. Curious to see where that's going to go. I loved it when Hunterhurst Helmsley just didn't want to be in the ring with Marc Mero or Jake Roberts. I certainly understood his hesitancy there. I wouldn't want to be in the ring with either of them either. We got the news that at the pay-per-view, Hunterhurst Helmsley will be defending the Intercontinental title against Marc Mero. That's another just negative mark against the fucking upcoming pay-per-view. They're really trying to make it so that we don't watch it. The chicken shit heel thing from Helmsley did get pretty tiring after a while, and I almost vomited when McMahon said that Jake and Marrow make a pretty effective tag team combination. I'm pretty sure Jake was blown up a couple hours before this match even happened, because he just showed up blown up and remained blown up throughout the entire thing here. Once we finally got Hunterhurst Helmsley in the ring, it was to stomp on Jake on the mat, literally kicking a man that was already down in many, many different ways.
Metaphorically, physically, mentally.
Yeah. The only thing left was for Hunter to drag him out and leave him by the dumpster. We broke to the classy Freddie Blassie WWF The Music commercial. Came back to Jake and Billy Gunn again. And then it was here at this point that I just became amazed that Jake Roberts had spent so much time in the ring in this. Next week, Psycho Sid will be taking on Hunterhurst Helmsley in a non-title match. That has potential to it, I think, maybe. The DDT from Jake didn't look too bad. Billy Gunn sold the hell out of it. But then the so-called hot tag to bring in both Marrow and Helmsley was wasted on Marrow's poor ring work. My God, talk about just fizzling out any kind of energy they had there. The blatant interference from Billy Gunn made the referee look like dog shit. I thought I was looking at Earl Hebner, but I really wasn't. And then that meant the double team from Helmsley, or the double team on Helmsley from Roberts and Marrow, that meant that was okay. And couldn't you tell it was time to get wild when Marrow took a whole bunch of time to do the Watusi and set up the wild thing. That's what got the victory here over Hunterhurst Helmsley while Jake was flopped out in the corner, sweating. Jake, after this, got up pretty quickly and was throwing the snake around inhumanely. Hunter was running away, and that is where we faded to black to end the show. Ryan, this match fucking sucked. What did you think?
A lot of times when you prepare yourself mentally going into a match like this, you know,
what do you do to prepare yourself mentally?
Well, I mean,
for this, I want to know.
You put your expectations on the floor.
Yeah.
And, you go into it saying, if they could at least do something, it'll be better than I expected. It was worse. It was worse than I expected. I don't know how you even came up with as much as you did to highlight about the match, Bartlett, because I got to be honest with you, about minute 53 of Jake being in there,
yeah.
They had him in a sleeper hold, and it was putting me to sleep. I almost fell asleep during this match, and this isn't a joke. I had to catch myself falling asleep during this match. It was so fucking boring.
You had to pour a cup of ice water on your face.
Nothing exciting happened. And it's sad because, Hunter's good. Billy isn't bad either, and they're on the same team. But all they had to do was a prone position Jake for the entire match. I mean, what the fuck are you going to do? Wow. Incredible. I have nothing more to say about the match. No highlights or even pointing out Marrow's many botched moves. This was just piss poor.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say, really. I mean, I guess these pairings themselves just make no fucking sense. Marc Mero and Jake Roberts, why are they together in a tag team? Billy Gunn and Hunterhurst Helmsley, why are they together in a tag team? You just pulled Billy Gunn away from Bart Gunn to try to do some sort of singles push, but you're putting him in a tag team again with some random guy. It just doesn't make sense. Like, you're ending the show with this. Again, yeah. You're in a ratings war. Anytime anyone is surprised about the 83 weeks that WCW beat WWF in the ratings, just go to this. Yeah. This is a prime example.
Just go ahead and fire up December 2, 96 Raw, and you'll see why.
Yeah, I made it through Flash Funk, but I would have changed the channel pretty soon after that.
And this is a taped show too. They could have rearranged the order of anything within this episode to, end with something else.
Or at least put loud sounds in that final match to keep me from falling asleep.
Well, as I said, that was the end of our episode. So let's take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you go first?
Well, the highlight's going to go to the litter box because it was perfectly clean, sparkling after this episode, because I hated this entire episode of Monday Night Raw. Everything about it was terrible. Everything. The fake, terrible interview with Shawn Michaels, the shitty matches. We're starting off the show with the Goon. I mean, you're starting the start time of Raw is earlier to try to go up against the competition, and you're starting with the Goon, and you're ending with this trash tag team match that we just talked about. So I just hated all of it.
So, I mean, if I'm going to dig for a highlight, it has to be Jerry the King Lawler making fun of Tiny Tim.
A dead guy. A guy who just died.
I'm sorry. I mean, maybe if we're in 96, it would be a little more tasteless to give it the highlight. But 25 years later here, I'm sorry, the King just refusing to not throw everything he's got at him. I got to give it the highlight. The low light is going to be this final match. There's a lot of low lights, a shit ton of low lights in this, but the final match was it was really the peak of how bad and boring this match or this episode could be. And again, legitimately, I almost fell asleep. So low light.
Yeah, I'm sharing a low light with you. This final match, Marrow and Roberts specifically, what's the opposite of a peak? Because that's how I was thinking of it. This whole episode was a downward trajectory. Not that Flash Funk and the Goon was the best, but it was the best on this show at least. And it was all downhill from there. So with the, like you say, the opposite peak being the absolute bottom of the barrel and Marrow and Roberts.
A trench.
Here.
It's a trench.
Yeah, the fucking Mariana here. Highlight, though, I ended up going with the promos that we got from England. Those were great promos all around. They were short, to the point. They had a good look to them. And those are the kind of promos that I wish we got more often, because they had a certain amount of realism to them that offset the Goon, Flash Funk gimmick bullshit. Well, really the gimmick bullshit that was throughout this entire episode, but they were just very brief examples of what good wrestling characters or gimmicks or whatever you really want to call it can be, cutting good promos. So that's where I went with it, and it was hard to get there, because as you both have said, this was a terrible, terrible episode. I would have changed the channel pretty much right after the Flash Funk match. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around December 2nd, 1996 for us?
Yeah, do you guys remember Goldust?
Yeah.
I know it's hard, but
wait.
Yeah, Goldust. He is going to be programmed with Ahmed Johnson to help give Ahmed Johnson some wins in his return to the WWF. So Goldust is pretty much being phased down here and might, I don't know, Ryan, you think maybe he'll get branded down the road here, and we'll see what happens. But that is just disappointing to see.
It really is.
Yeah.
And what else is disappointing is that's pretty much all that's going on. There isn't jack shit in the news, but do you guys want to hear about maybe what's going on in some other places? How about ECW? We mentioned that tonight.
This episode's running short, so we've got time.
November 23rd. 1996 is when the mass transit incident took place in ECW. For those that might not know what that is, this is where New Jack bladed a 350-pound, 17-year-old kid known as Mass Transit. And it was more blood than anyone has ever seen in a wrestling match. New Jack got on the mic after and said he didn't care if the motherfucker bled to death.
Yeah.
This was an unfortunate incident for many reasons, obvious reasons, but ECW was planning to have their first pay-per-view event. I believe it was called Barely Legal. This actually delayed that.
Because it was actually illegal.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, Barely Legal ended up happening, I think, in April. So about 5-6 months after this, unfortunately, even though I think it was supposed to happen in December. So got put on hold for that incident. And you know what? That's pretty much all that's going on right now.
Well, that's probably for the best, because if episodes like this are what's going on, then better left unsaid. Thank you, Joseph. And that is it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Rawheads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on December 9th, 1996, with matches featuring Goldust, Bart Gunn, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.